Ellie Dudley is the Australian's legal affairs correspondent. Ellie, on Wednesday in court, we heard some pretty explosive evidence about an alleged kiss between Bruce Lehrmann and Brittany Higgins. Who was talking about it?
So it was a former Liberal staffer called Lauren Gain. She went with Brittany Higgins and Bruce Lehrmann and another Liberal staffer called Austin Wenke to the 88 MPH nightclub on the night that the alleged rape occurred. She went there and she said that while she had had 6 or 7 drinks at the Dock Hotel beforehand, she said she had a clear recollection of Bruce Lehrmann and Brittany Higgins sitting quite close to each other in a booth at the 88 MPH club. She said that she saw them touching each other's thighs and saw them engage in one passionate kiss.
Yeah, it was an awkward moment when she was being asked about the kiss because the counsel for Network 10, Matt Collins, asked her which part of their bodies were kissing. The judge had to intervene at that point.
Yeah. And I think they said, well, at least one of their mouths must have been involved. I think counsel said that at one point. But yes, I think kissing on the lips was what was determined.
And this is in contradiction to what both Bruce Lehrmann and Brittany Higgins have said about that night. And let's recall, of course, this is the night where Brittany Higgins claims that she was raped by Bruce Lehrmann. Bruce Lehrmann, of course, vehemently denies ever having raped Brittany Higgins or, in fact, having any sexual contact at all with her that night or ever. So in the witness box, Brittany Higgins said that she was a pretty reluctant participant in any affection from Bruce Lehrmann that night, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She said that he was making her feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I believe that the word that she used was she tolerated him being quite close to her that evening. Obviously, Bruce Lehrmann has completely denied ever kissing Brittany Higgins and has maintained that his interactions with her that night were minimal and professional.
Yeah, he says in his evidence, he said he didn't put his arm around her, he didn't touch her, he didn't kiss her.
It didn't help her back up when she fell over in front of him. So, yeah, is really sort of sticking to this narrative that he had hardly anything to do with this woman.
Now, this evidence, of course, we have to analyse in the context of this big trial. You know, who is this better for? I noted while listening to the trial that Matt Collins, counsel for 10, was very interested in this evidence and was trying to elicit more. But when Steve Whybrow, counsel for Lehrmann, cross-examined Lauren Gain, he didn't come back to this. He didn't try to get more out of her about this alleged kiss. That kind of made me think that maybe it's better for 10's case than it is for Lehrmann's.
Yeah, and Lauren Gain is a witness that was called by Network 10. From what I can see, it seems like they're setting up a narrative of Bruce Lehrmann quite liking Brittany Higgins. Another thing that we heard today is that at an event 3 weeks before the alleged rape occurred, Bruce Lehrmann allegedly called Brittany Higgins good looking and wanted her to come down to the pub to hang out with him and 2 other of his colleagues and a bunch of others who were at the pub after Linda Reynolds' swearing in ceremony. So it seems to me like Matthew Collins and Network 10 are trying to set up this narrative of Bruce Lehrmann was quite interested in this woman and eventually took her back to Parliament House to have sex with her.
Of course, Bruce Lehrmann has denied any sex at all, which means presumably that it's either bad for him or it's neutral if the judge finds that they were kissing and touching in the bar beforehand.
Correct. It will be really interesting to see what Justice Michael Lee makes of the evidence that we saw today.
There was evidence too about an earlier drinks event, and this is a window into Canberra's boozy culture, right, where Brittany Higgins came along on the 2nd of March, so 20 days before the alleged rape, to the Kingston Hotel where a bunch of staffers were drinking, including Bruce Lehrmann. And there were pretty differing accounts of what happened that night too, including what happened when she tried to leave.
Correct. So to tell that story correctly, there's Bruce Lehrmann, there's 2 other Liberal staffers who were involved as well. One who was the media advisor to Linda Reynolds, her name was Nikki Hamer, and another staffer called Jessie Watton. So according to Miss Hamer's recollection of events, they were at the Kingston Hotel following Senator Reynolds' swearing in ceremony, and Bruce Lehrmann said to her, hey, message Brittany Higgins on Instagram, she's good looking, get her to come down here and hang out with us. Miss Higgins eventually comes down. Her and Miss Hamer leave the pub for a period of time. Brittany Higgins has previously said during that period they were talking about a potential job for her in Senator Reynolds' office. Nikki Hamer today said that they were just talking about their careers more broadly. And eventually they came back into the pub. Today, Nikki Hamer said that upon returning to the group, Bruce Lerman took Brittany Higgins' phone from her to prevent her from leaving the pub, to prevent her from booking an Uber to go, because she said that she had to go to another event after this one at the Kingston Hotel. Anyway, she eventually retrieved her phone and left the pub. And that's when what they are referring to as a heated discussion occurred between Nikki Hamer, Jessie Watton, and Bruce Lerman. So from where Nikki Hamer was standing, she said that she was getting in trouble from Bruce Lerman and Jessie Watton for being a feminist, she said, and trying to stand up for Brittany Higgins. So conflicting events about this heated discussion. After that heated discussion occurred, Nikki Hamer left the pub. She wrote a resignation letter to Senator Reynolds, saying she told the court that after that conversation with Bruce Lerman and Jessie Watton, she felt ganged up on, but she was also on her way out of Senator Reynolds' office, that she had sort of had enough by that point. She ended up having a meeting with Senator Reynolds the Sunday after, and was convinced to stay, and so she retracted her resignation letter. And then Mr. Watton said that he and Bruce Lerman were called in to separate meetings with Senator Reynolds, in which they were reprimanded by her for this tense discussion they had had with Nikki Hamer. Jessie Watton said that he and Mr. Lerman were both quite unhappy with how Minister Reynolds had I guess, analysed the way that discussion had occurred, and were unhappy with the fact that they had been reprimanded.
There's a lot to unpick there, isn't there? You know, it demonstrates, if Nikki Hamer is telling the truth, that Brittany Higgins was right, that Bruce Lerman did try to take her phone and stop her from leaving the bar. It suggests that Bruce Lerman did have some sort of interest in her, something he has completely denied. Jessie Watton said that, in fact, the argument was with him, not with Bruce Lerman and Nikki Hamer, that it was him that Nikki Hamer had the problem with.
Yeah, and Jessie Watton's version of events from that period differed quite largely from Nikki Hamer's. He said that he didn't recall Brittany Higgins' phone being taken at all. He also said that he didn't recall Nikki Hamer being the one to invite Brittany Higgins down to the pub, but Bruce himself. So clearly there must have been a bit of alcohol drunk that night, or maybe it was just the passage of time between, now and 4 years ago. But ultimately there were conflicting events of what happened that night.
The other factor there is Linda Reynolds' knowledge that of some sort of issue involving Brittany Higgins, this woman who was about to become her new staffer. Of course, Network 10 and Brittany Higgins and Lisa Wilkinson are alleging that there was a political conspiracy from the Morrison government to cover up this rape. That's Brittany Higgins's claim. It puts things in a slightly different light, doesn't it? If it's true that Linda Reynolds knew that A, Bruce Lerman had an interest in Brittany Higgins, and B, a female staffer had to step in to kind of protect Brittany.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that story is true from Nikki Hamer's perspective, I guess it does set up sort of a foundation for these later interactions and these later difficulties and tension between Brittany Higgins and Senator Reynolds.
I'll enjoy watching the rest of the trial with you.
Mm.
Thanks.